Previously, we saw Moses communicating with God through a bush that was on fire and being tasked with an impossible task. But it is only impossible in the means of man. It is not impossible in the divine. Exodus 4:1. And Moses answered, "But behold, they will not believe me, or listen and obey my voice. For they will say, 'The Lord has not appeared to you.'" Moses has been granted this impossible task, and he realizes that the people of Egypt, the Israelites that are dwelling in Egypt, that have been there for some time, would not believe him that he went out and met God, and God has tasked him with this. So he's looking for something to show the people showing the Israelites how these things could be so. Exodus 4:2. And the Lord said to him, "What is that in your hand?" And he said, "A rod." 4:3. And he said, "Cast it on the ground." And he did so. And it became a serpent, the symbol of royal and divine power, worn on the crown of the pharaohs. And Moses fled from before it. So here we have the transformation of the staff into a serpent, into a snake, which is the symbol of royalty in the land of Egypt. And it spooks Moses, so he runs and hides. It's like, snake! So what do we got going on here? Exodus 4:4. And the Lord said to Moses, "Put forth your hand and take it by the tail." And he stretched out his hand and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand. 4:5. "This you shall do," said the Lord, "that the elders may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, has indeed appeared to you." So we have the rod turning into a snake, and then we have the snake turning back into a rod. And this is going to be a visual sign or a miracle to show that Moses is indeed on a mission from God. Exodus 4:6. The Lord said also to him, "Put your hand into your bosom." He put his hand into his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous, as white as snow. 4:7. God said, "Put your hand into your bosom again." So he put his hand back into his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, it was restored as the rest of his flesh. So here we have another miracle, turning the hand leprous and restoring it back to a natural state. Exodus 4:8. Then God said, "If they will not believe you or heed the voice or the testimony of the first sign, they may believe the voice or the witness of the second sign." So here we have a backup plan. If they don't go for the stick into the snake, they'll go for the leper on the hand. But what if they still don't believe? Exodus 4:9. "But if they will also not believe these two signs, or heed your voice, you shall take some of the water out of the river Nile, and pour it upon the dry land. And the water which you take out of the river Nile shall become blood on the dry land." Exodus 4:10. And Moses said to the Lord, "O Lord, I am not eloquent or a man of words, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant. For I am slow of speech and have a heavy and awkward tongue." So now we have a backup with the turning the river to blood. And Moses is complaining that he is not a man of words, that he has an awkward tongue, and he's kind of nervous. I'm guessing that's kind of what's going on there. I can kind of relate to that, not being a good speaker as well. But what's the Lord going to say to this? Is he going to buy that excuse? I don't think so. Exodus 4:11. And the Lord said to him, "Who has made man's mouth? Or who makes the dumb or the deaf or the seeing or the blind? Is it not I, the Lord? 4 and 12. Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth, and will teach you what you shall say. What a wonderful response by the Lord in this particular instance. He is in control. He has the power. He can give him what he needs to say for the proper resulting outcome. The Lord can look after this for him. How great is that? Exodus 4 and 13. And he said, O my Lord, I pray you, send by the hand of some other whom you will send. Moses would generally prefer if God could use someone else other than him. He has weaknesses in the flesh, and he doesn't believe that he is capable of doing what the Lord has asked of him. Exodus 4 and 14. Then the anger of the Lord blazed against Moses. He said, Is there not Aaron your brother, the Levite? I know he can speak well. Also, he is coming out to meet you, and when he sees you, he will be overjoyed. Moses is really fighting the Lord on doing all of this. And the Lord is getting kind of frustrated with this, and he says, Fine, we'll get your brother to help you. Your brother is capable of speaking. The Lord could have made Moses to talk, and I think that's what the Lord really desired. He really desired to use Moses for this. But he is allowing a substitution, a proxy, someone else that will get the words through because of the weakness of the flesh and that which is Moses. Exodus 4 and 15. You must speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and will teach you what you shall do. 4 and 16. He shall speak for you to the people, acting as a mouthpiece for you, and you shall be as God to him. So the Lord is still going to use Moses, and he's going to speak through Moses, but then Moses is going to speak to his brother, and his brother is going to speak the words. So we kind of have this proxy system set up and in place. Exodus 4 and 17. And you shall take this rod in your hand, with which you shall work the signs that prove I sent you. I kind of wonder if Moses was getting ready to leave, for his conversation with God at this juncture in time was over, and maybe he was a little bit hesitant on picking up the rod. He just was going to leave, and maybe the rod was just kind of sitting there on the ground. He didn't want to touch it because it was just a snake. But the Lord is reminding him, you got to take that rod with you, for you're going to need it. The other miracles, he doesn't need any additional tools. The hand into leprosy, he just sticks it in his bosom. And turning the water into blood, he doesn't need anything either. But in order to do the rod into the snake, he's going to need that rod. So he's got to take it now. He doesn't want to leave that there. Well, I mean, he can't leave that there, or else he can't do that miracle. So he has to take it, even if he feels a little bit iffy about touching a snake. Exodus 4 and 18. And Moses went away, and returning to Jethro, his father-in-law, said to him, Let me go back, I pray you, to my relatives in Egypt, to see whether they are still alive. And Jethro said to Moses, Go in peace. So Moses has concluded the conversation with the Lord, and he's making his way back. He goes and sees his father-in-law, which I'm assuming is where he lived. He probably lived in that house with his wife as well. And asked for permission to go back down to Egypt to see his family. And Jethro, being the cool guy he is, says, Go in peace. He's going to allow him to go. This will increase the burden on him, but he knows that Moses needs to see his family, and Moses will come back later and make good on things. Exodus 4 and 19. The Lord said to Moses in Midian, Go back to Egypt, for all the men who were seeking your life for killing the Egyptian are dead. 4 and 20. And Moses took his wife and his sons and set them on donkeys, and he returned to the land of Egypt. And Moses took the rod of God in his hand. So I guess Jethro knows that he's going to go away for a while, and I mean, he's bringing his family with him. So they said their goodbyes. They're heading down to Egypt, and he's bringing his wife and kids along, and he's clutching on to that rod, the rod that he got from God. Well, the rod that he had from beforehand that the Lord modified for it to have the snake power. So that's kind of cool. And I'm sure he was probably clutching it and kind of squeezing it and almost like, thinking of the Lord in the process, right? Just holding on to it. Thinking about the experiences that he had and what the Lord has taught him in their short conversation there in the burning bush. The bush that is on fire but not consumed by the flame. Exodus 4:21. And the Lord said to Moses, when you return into Egypt, see that you do before Pharaoh all those miracles and wonders which I have put in your hand. But I will make him stubborn and harden his heart so that he will not let the people go. I like this scenario. So the Lord's telling him, you got to do these things. You got to get all this stuff done. You got to do these miracles. You got to do these wonders. And Moses is probably wondering, oh, okay, so we'll do all that. Then the Pharaoh will let us all go. And God's like, no, I'm going to harden his heart, and he's not going to let you guys go. And this is just going to escalate the scenario, escalate the situation. So Moses knows going into this that the Pharaoh is not going to listen to his demands. And it would be too simple, and it would be kind of probably meaningless. The Israelites, they have suffered a lot under the hands of these taskmasters for this extended period of time. There is no way that they're just going to casually let them go. There's a debt to be paid here. They owe them back pay. But at the same time, this is an opportunity to Pharaoh, should he choose to accept it. Exodus 4:22. And you shall say to Pharaoh, thus says the Lord, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. 4:23. And I say to you, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if you refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay your son, your firstborn. Israel and the Israelites, they're kind of special. We go back to Jacob wrestling with God. He wrestled overnight and he would not submit to God until he got a blessing. So God had to cripple him as a result. But he changed his name from Jacob the supplanter to Israel, the man who wrestled with God. So we have the Lord taking on kind of a fatherly role here and referring to Israel as his firstborn, the first one to get the opportunity. So the Lord is going to slay the firstborn of Pharaoh. In ways, it is a parallel. In the way that Pharaoh has made the firstborn of God, the children of Israel, suffer, he is going to do the same to Pharaoh. So Pharaoh can understand the pain that God has when his people are not in his land that he has given them, not having the blessings that he has bestowed to them, for they are locked in here in the land of Egypt. Now for a little bit of a side quest on the way back to Egypt. Exodus 4:24. Along the way, at a resting place, the Lord met Moses and sought to kill him, made him acutely and almost fatally ill. 4:25. Now apparently he had failed to circumcise one of his sons, his wife being opposed to it. But seeing his life in such danger, Zipporah took a flint knife and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it to touch Moses' feet and said, surely a husband of blood you are to me. So we see here that Moses has failed to get his son circumcised, at least one of his sons, and the Lord is dispensing a judgment on him as a result. If we recall back to the Abrahamic covenant, or to the covenant that was with Isaac or with Jacob, circumcision was definitely a requirement, and it needed to be done as a way to separate the people of God from the people, well, I guess the people that aren't of God. I was going to say the people of men, but I guess that Does that really work? It sounds cool, but it might not necessarily be true. But it was like a separation to make the Israelites separate and distinct from the people around them. And of course, Moses' wife here, she doesn't know anything about circumcision, for she is kind of from a different land. So, I don't know. She decided that maybe it was cruel and she didn't want to do it, and as a result, Moses is suffering greatly. Some of this is likely due to the fact that God has selected Moses to be a prophet, so as a result, he's kind of held to a higher standard. And we've kind of seen a few times so far where Moses doesn't quite get it, and God has been a little bit upset. And this is just another instance of that. Exodus 4:26. When he let Moses alone to recover, Zipporah said, "A husband of blood you are because of the circumcision." 4:27. The Lord said to Aaron, "Go into the wilderness to meet Moses." And he went and met him in the mountain of God, of Horeb or Shinar, and kissed him. So I think some of the stuff in here, it's kind of written a little bit out of order. Like an idea is kind of explored, and then we go back to somewhere else before the story splits off. And I think in this instance, that's what happened. I think Aaron came and met him at Mount Shinar, so Aaron made his way out of Egypt to see and check on his brother, and meets him out here in Shinar. And then the two of them went together back to Egypt, and that's when that last event happened with the failing to circumcise his son and almost being killed as a result. So, Exodus 4:28. Moses told Aaron all the words of the Lord with which he had sent him, and all the signs with which he had charged him. 4:29. Moses and Aaron went and gathered together in Egypt all the elders of the Israelites. So there we go. They've met up. They've met up near Mount Sinai, and Moses is telling them about all these wonderful things, and they're making their way to Egypt, and they're meeting with the elders to discuss what has occurred and what has transpired and what God has told Moses. And of course, Moses isn't going to say it himself. He's going to explain it to Aaron, and then Aaron's going to repeat the words to these people. Exodus 4:30. Aaron spoke all the words which the Lord had spoken to Moses, and did the signs in the sight of the people. 4:31. And the people believed, and when they heard that the Lord had visited the Israelites, and that he had looked in compassion upon their affliction, they bowed their heads and worshipped. So Moses is meeting with the elders of the Israelites along with the people, and he's showing off the miracles that God has given him, and he's explaining through use of his brother as an intermediary all the wonderful things that he has been taught. And the people of Israel, they bow down and worship. They accept this as truth, and they will be delivered, and they have a new hope, a new reason to get up every morning and toil, for they know they are near the end, and they will be able to return to the promised land, escaping Egypt, escaping the taskmasters. How wonderful is that?